Welcome back to Kadira Recaps. Today I will show you a parody thriller from 1981, named An American Werewolf in London. Spoilers ahead. Look out and fare thee well. In northeastern England, a truck loaded with sheep stops to drop off two American hikers that hitched a ride, David Kessler and Jack Goodman. The driver reminds them to remain on the streets prior to leaving, and the pair starts journeying through the fields in Yorkshire. It's all piece of their 3-month trip, which later will take them to Italy, where Jack trusts to meet the young lady he's loved since the 8th grade. Whenever night begins to fall, the companions choose to stop in a modest community to rest and eat. They observe a bar called The Slaughtered Sheep, with an upsetting sign that shows a draining wolf head. However, they choose to enter. Everybody inside in a split second falls quiet, and they don't return to their things until the folks have made their request. While pausing, Jack sees something painted on the divider. A 5-pointed star, generally utilized in black magic as a portrayal of the Wolfman. He inquires why they have that pentagram there, making everybody in the bar in a split second get antagonistic. What's more, throw the companions outright as a tempest is beginning to mix outside. The barkeep disagrees. She believes it's not ideal for them to release them like this, yet the men yet again don't allow her to have a word. They request that David and Jack leave while reminding them to remain on the streets and to be careful. The moon. After the pair is gone, the men examine the matter once more, considering the reality they presumably sent the young men to their homicide, yet what is done will be finished. Coming clean with them would have been an impractical notion in any case, since the folks would have not trusted them. While the yelling of a wolf starts reverberating nearby, the barkeep requests that the men go get the young men, yet they claim to not hear anything. In the interim, David and Jack incidentally get off the street while they mess about in the downpour. They start hearing the wolf wailing also and attempt to get back. However, they understand they're lost, so they make an honest effort to run the other way from the commotions. Notwithstanding David outings and falls, giving the wolf time to get up to speed and assault. The monster bounces on Jack and kills him, then pursues David, yet it just will scratch him and tear into him once previously the men from the bar show up and kill it. Prior to dropping, David sees a stripped man on the ground, draining from his discharge wounds. After 3 weeks, David is at a medical clinic in London, being dealt with by Dr. J.S. Hirsch and nurture Alex Price, who are talking about his case while he's as yet oblivious. The police report said he was gone after by a got-away neurotic. Subsequent to dreaming about going through the backwoods, David at long last awakens and finds the specialist and a worker from the American consulate, who lets him know his and Jack's families have previously been told about what occurred. He starts going ballistic when he hears Jack is dead, so the medical attendant gives him a narcotic. However, prior to passing out once more, he explains he wasn't gone after by a crazy person, it was really a wolf. A couple of hours after the fact, 2 analysts from Scotland Yard come to ask David a few inquiries, yet they don't trust him when he says he was gone after by a wolf. The examination report from the police officers in Yorkshire and the declaration from the observers say it was a man, so they think David presumably daydreamed as a result of the blackout, except if he truly accepts he can demonstrate a beast of some kind or another scheme. David fails to see how there might have been observers, and Dr. Hirsch faults it on memory issues, yet David guarantees him his memory is fine. It's his mental soundness he's beginning to uncertainty. Afterward, David longs for going through the timberland once more. This time he can see himself stripped and hopping on a few wild creatures to eat them. When lunch is brought to him, he isn't eager and won't eat. Nurture Alex can't give him his pills on the off chance that he has an unfilled stomach, so she begins forcibly feeding him herself, a signal David views as charming. Once more, whenever David nods off, another horrible comes. This time he's running through the woodland with his voyaging garments on and he sees himself on the medical clinic bed, making an immense face at Alex when she comes to mind him. At the point when he awakens, he tells Dr. Hirsch that his fantasies had never been so distinctive and genuine. However, the specialist simply checks his wounds to check whether they're mending great and faults the bad dreams on the horrible experience. David would rather not be distant from everyone else, so Dr. Hirsch acknowledges to send him somebody that can stay with him around evening time. In the evening, Alex comes to peruse to him, yet when David nods off, he starts having another bad dream. This time, he's in his family home. Furthermore, he needs to see how beast fighters kill everybody prior to lighting the house ablaze. When he awakens, he enlightens Alex, yet a beast warrior gets through the window and kills her as well. It's morning when David awakens for genuine this time. He gets prepared to have his morning meal, yet he out of nowhere sees something very surprising. Jack's phantom is in the room, brandishing the scars the wolf left on him. In the wake of enlightening David regarding all individuals that came to his burial service, Jack passes on the message he came for in the first place. They were gone after by a werewolf, and they have both been reviled for it. Jack will walk the earth in an in-between state until the revile is lifted, and David will change into a wolf at the point when the full moon comes around in 2 days. To try not to kill individuals and save Jack, then David should kick the bucket. This news upset David incredibly, and he will not pay attention to Jack anymore, so he requires the medical attendant. However, when Alex shows up, Jack is no more. David kisses Alex prior to telling her he's a werewolf and that the phantom of his closest companion has visited him. However, Alex believes he's been dreaming once more, so David acknowledges that as a clarification. Presently, David is adequately solid to be released. Alex welcomes him to remain in her loft, so they go there subsequent to halting for food. After Alex provides David with a visit through the spot, both of them wind up sharing the shower and the bed for the evening. Whenever they are finished, what's more, Alex has nodded off. David goes to the restroom and finds Jack's apparition once more, this time seeming as though he's begun to spoil. In the wake of prodding David for getting a medical caretaker sweetheart, Jack reminds him indeed that he really wants to bite the dust before he winds up killing somebody. David attempts to persuade himself that this isn't genuine, and Jack disappears when Alex wakes up and comes over when she hears voices. She listens to David when he shares his concerns, particularly when he expresses that in the old films just a werewolf's cherished one could kill him. Alex solaces him and lets him know this is his culpability talking. He presumably feels terrible since he was unable to save Jack. The next day, Dr. Hirsch drives the entire way to Yorkshire to visit the slaughtered lamb and beware of David's story. Everyone in the bar imagines, however, they don't have a clue when he begins getting clarification on some pressing issues. Furthermore, when Hirsch sees the star on the divider, they simply let him know it was at that point there when they got the spot and left it as conventional adornment. Seeing as he won't track down any responses here, Hirsch chooses to leave, yet en route to his vehicle, he observes a man hanging tight for him. This man cautions him that David and individuals around him are at serious risk, yet before he can say more, a man from the bar comes out and makes him drop the subject. Back in London, Alex is leaving for work, so David emerges to say farewell to her for. Presently, he's coincidentally locked himself out of the house, so he needs to go around and move through the window. While attempting to do this, a canine and a feline stroll by and the two creatures respond threateningly to his presence. When he's back inside, David actually looks at his teeth and growls at the mirror, yet he sees nothing unusual. Then, at that point, he attempts to keep himself occupied with different exercises like sitting in front of the TV, eating, and perusing, yet he keeps on being exhausted. In any case, when sun sets, things get less exhausting. David begins shouting when he abruptly feels his body consuming, and he removes his garments before he starts changing into a werewolf under the radiance of the full moon. Then, at that point, he gets away from the house, anxious to track down prey. His first casualties are a couple that is visiting a few companions for an evening gathering. David gets them in the nursery and kills them there. Hearing the clamors outside, the proprietor goes to check furthermore, observes the bodies just after the wolf leaves. In the interim, at the emergency clinic, Hirsch is stressed over David, so he settles on Alex's decision her home to keep an eye on him. At the point when no one picks up the telephone, Hirsch chooses to impart to Alex what he's found out in Yorkshire. The case was shut, they lost the record, and David's wounds were dealt with previously. He showed up in London yet no specialist had seen him, so this implies the entire local area is concealing what occurred there. Hirsch trusts its widespread panic, and if every other person in that town accepted it was a werewolf, then, at that point, clearly David's brain in the wake of going through injury would accept it as well. Hirsch figures David will go out in an insane state and hurt others while believing he's a beast, so he chooses to call the police. In any event, when Alex calls attention to that, what David needs its mental assistance. Back to David, he's still all over town searching for more prey. He comes by the waterway to kill a gathering of homeless people, then, at that point, gets inside the metro station to go after a man that attempts to move away from him yet trips on the steps, offering him the ideal chance to strike. The next morning, David wakes up totally bare inside the wolf confine at the zoo, without a solitary memory of what occurred. The wolves don't appear to mind him, so he effectively gets away from the enclosure and sneaks around, stowing away in hedges and behind dividers. To begin with, he takes an inflatables from a youngster to